Hey, I'm Sarah,
No, I'm Dawn.
and we got to be back by dark.
Yeah, we do.
Okay, so this case has gotten a lot of media coverage lately. So we figured we would start out our podcast telling you a story about a multi state 17, ugh, 17-day crime spree involving the murder of two women, one being very local to us. No,
Very.
yeah. Brandon Basham and Chadrick Fulks escaped Kentucky's Hopkins County Detention Center on November the 4th of 2002. They scaled a wall of the recreation area and left the vicinity on foot. Once they broke free, they set out on a 17-day crime spree that spread across several states. Let's back up a little bit. Okay, Brandon Basham and Chadrick Fulks became cellmates in October of 2002. Basham was serving the final years of a felony forgery conviction sentence. From what I understand, he didn't have much time left to serve at this point. Now, at the beginning of November, Fulks was charged with an additional and very serious state offense, the first-degree abuse of a child aged 12 years or younger.
That's not good.
No, it's not. Now, of course, I don't know about this personally, but I have heard that in jail it is much worse for you if you have a child abuse charge.
That's what I've always heard.
Yeah, you're essentially eaten alive.
Yeah. Once they find out what your charges are, that has anything to do with kids, you're done.
Yeah. Folks got this charge like the day before that they escaped. And yeah, that probably had something to do with it. Them getting out of there. So now we're back up to the November 4th of 2002. Basham and Fulks escaped the detention center together, leaving the area on foot. They literally climbed up a wall, jumped the other side of the wall, and walked off.
Just like that.
Just like that. Wasn't anything like in the movies. No Shawshank Redemption tunnel with a spoon. This is like they had the lamest escape ever.
Nothing cool about these guys.
No Ocean's 11, none of it. No paying off, no payoffs, nothing. Unfortunately, that's all it took to get out of there and start ruining people's lives. Now, by the evening of November the 5th, Basham and Fulks reached the home of one James Hawkins in nearby Hanson, Kentucky.
They didn't waste any time.
No, they was on it. Basham went up, knocked on the door, and asked Hawkins if he could use his telephone. Basham, now this wasn't that off, because cell phones weren't as popular as they are now.
Right.
So somebody needing a phone, they're not going to be like, well, where's your cell phone? Why aren't you just...
Yeah, no question.
Yeah.
Why they need to use a phone.
So Basham was allowed to use the phone. He made 2 phone calls and told Hawkins that his car had broken down, and Hawkins, being the nice country man that he was, agreed to drive him to a nearby convenience store. When Basham and Hawkins left the residence, Fulks joined them and the 3 men left in Hawkins' truck. The 2 men then told Hawkins that their vehicle was disabled in Robards, Kentucky, and they asked him for a ride there. During the drive, Fulks changed his story and told Hawkins that their vehicle was actually broke down in Indiana and directed Hawkins to drive there. Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah. Fulks changed the directions again, and by this point, Basham was pointing a knife at Hawkins to keep him driving.
Well, he's not going to keep changing directions like that. Otherwise.
No,
not that nice.
No, not or stupid.
Yeah.
Fulks took over driving and then proceeded to drive the truck to a field and ordered Basham to tie Hawkins to a tree. In the end, Fulks took over because he said Basham was taking too long. Now, they left Hawkins tied to a tree, wearing only shorts, a short-sleeved vest, and flip-flops in November.
Probably pretty cold.
I'm betting. Now, he stayed tied. he stayed tied up to that tree for 15 hours before he was able to free himself. And then he was able to flag somebody passing down the road. Later that day, Hawkins identified Basham and Fulks as the ones who'd kidnapped him when he was interviewed by cops. Fulks and Basham drove to a hotel in Portage, Indiana, where they abandoned Hawkins' vehicle because, they can be traced. Somebody might pull them over and they're going to get screwed right there.
Yeah, and Hawkins knew that they had his truck, and he knew what they looked like.
Yeah. From where they abandoned the vehicle, they walked to the trailer of Fulks' former girlfriend, Tina Severance, and her friend, Andrea Roddy. The four of them drove to a hotel in northern Indiana and stayed there for the next couple days.
All right.
Well, you shouldn't go to visit people like ex-girlfriends or family members as soon as you get out of jail, because that's the first place they're going to look. At least they were smart enough to not stay at her house.
Yeah.
Fulks asked Severance if she knew anyone with firearms. Severance told him a friend of hers, one Robert Talsma, kept several firearms at his home.
She says, I know a guy.
Yeah, I know a guy. Severance and Roddy agreed to lure Talsma out of his house by offering to buy him breakfast. Well, I mean, that's a good way to get somebody out of the house.
Yeah.
Offer to buy me breakfast if I'm already awake.
I got no questions for you.
Yeah. While Talsma was at breakfast with the women, Basham and Fulks entered his home and stole 4 firearms, a ring, and several blank checks. Because this was early 2000s, everybody had checks. They reunited with Severance and Roddy, and the four traveled with Severance's van to Sturgis, Michigan. That night, November the 8th, Basham and Roddy stayed at a hotel in Sturgis, while Fulks and Severance drove to Goshen, Indiana, to smoke marijuana and methamphetamines with Fulks' brother, Ronnie Fulks. Again, hanging out with people connected to your past. Not a smart move when you're just getting out of jail. Basham and Roddy had started a consensual relationship at this point. That evening, 2 police officers began knocking on doors at the hotel where Basham and Roddy were staying in Sturgis. Basham opened his door, saw the officers, close the door, and cocked a .22 caliber revolver that he had stolen. The officers ended up leaving before reaching Basham's door, which they were probably not even there for him.
No.
Probably a call for something else.
Yeah.
Basham told Roddy, I was about to shoot me a mother effing cop right now. I was going to blow the effer away.
With a 22.
With a .22, yeah. You're not going to blow anything away, but maybe a moth. You might kill the person, but you're not going to blow anybody away.
No.
The next morning, now we're at November 9th, Basham and Roddy drove to the local Kmart to purchase sundries.
Kmart.
I know, I miss Kmart. Basham met a group of teenagers in the parking lot and reported to Roddy that they had some money and he wanted to kill them for it. Not steal it, but kill them for it.
Yeah.
After purchasing sundries, I love that word.
What's that mean?
A little bit of this and a little bit of that. A little bit of this and a little bit of that. After purchasing sundries with some of Talsma's stolen checks, paper trail people, Basham invited the teenagers back to the hotel room. Well, teenagers, they're stupid.
Well, yeah.
We all were. We all were teenagers once. Severance and Fulks arrived back at the hotel shortly thereafter, and the teenagers left. Thankfully, alive.
Yes.
Wonder now if those kids know how close they came.
Probably not. Or maybe they do. But I would say Basham was just trying to act tough in front of the girl.
Maybe. Fulks, Basham, Severance, and Roddy then drove Severance's van to the home of Fulks' brother, Ronnie, in Goshen, Indiana. On November 10th, 2002, the group of 4 drove to Piketon, Ohio in Severance's van. Basham again used Talsma's checks to buy sundries, which Roddy later returned for cash. They're learning. Basham and Fulks also bought 2 sets of camouflage clothing, and Fulks stole a purse and cell phone from a Walmart parking lot.
I love a parking lot.
Well, yeah. And I mean, really, camo, it's November. They're in Ohio.
Literally blending right in.
Yeah, right. You can see me. On November 11th, they drove to Canova, West Virginia, which is near Huntington, and rented a hotel room. Fulks and Basham, wearing their sets of camouflage clothing, left the hotel room by themselves and did not return until the early morning hours of November the 12th. Now, Samantha Burns was a 19-year-old Marshall University student who worked at J.C. Penney's store in the Huntington Mall. In addition, Burns also participated in a school fundraiser by selling candy boxes, which she kept in the car. On November the 11th, Burns met her aunt at Penney's to purchase clothing for one of Burns's nieces. They parked in separate locations at the mall as Burns had to work that evening. At 9:46 p.m. that evening, Burns called her mother to say she was staying at a friend's house that night. Burns has never been seen since. Now, the mall closes at 9.
Right.
And I guess she was closing.
Well, I don't know, but if you are closing, you're not going to get out of there until 9:30, 9:45.
Yeah. Now, during the early morning hours of November the 12th, 2002, a local fire department responded to a reported explosion and a fire in a rural area 3 miles outside of Huntington. The responding firemen found a car later identified as belonging to Burns burned out at a cemetery. And this was right on the county line between Cabell County, where the Barbersville Mall, or the Huntington Mall in Barbersville is, as well as Marshall University and the adjacent county, Wayne County.
Right.
The responding firemen found the car later at a cemetery. Meanwhile, Fulks and Basham returned to the hotel carrying muddy clothing, and Fulks indicated that they had stolen some money. Okay, I don't know how that makes you muddy, but okay. And Fulks indicated that they had, yeah. Later that morning, the group of 4 checked out of the motel and drove all the way to South Carolina, where Fulks had lived for several years in the 1990s.
In the 90s.
Yes. Several facts emerged linking Basham and Fulks to Burns's disappearance. Roddy and Severance reported seeing mud as well as one of Burns's candy boxes in the van. In addition, Basham began wearing a heart-shaped ring around his neck that belonged to Samantha Burns.
That's creepy. It's like a trophy.
It is. Basham told the women that he had stolen the candy from a girl selling it, and that he had stolen the ring from a car. Roddy, yeah. Roddy also found Burns's photo ID, discarded with other items linking Burns to Fulks and Basham. Moreover, it was later revealed that Fulks used Burns's ATM card twice on the evening of November the 11th at local banks. The evening of November the 12th, Fulks, Basham, Severance, and Roddy arrived at a motel in Little River, South Carolina. The next day was a day of relative rest. Fulks and Basham stole several purses and wallets from unattended vehicles, went shopping, and then returned to the motel room to smoke marijuana, drink, and play cards.
Just robbing some cars for relaxation.
Yeah, just a nice, relaxing pastime. On November 14th, the 4 moved to a motel in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, which is a straight shot down Interstate 64 from Huntington. So,
right. That's why everybody from Huntington goes to Myrtle Beach on vacation.
Well, yes, if we're not going to the Smoky Mountains, we're going to the Myrtle Beach.
That's right.
Fulks and Basham left the women and drove to nearby Conway, South Carolina, hoping to steal firearms, because apparently the ones they had from the first robbery, were just not enough.
No.
Hoping to steal firearms, Fulks and Basham burglarized the Conway home of Sam Jordan. Carl Jordan, Sam's father, drove up to the home as Fulks and Basham were leaving. Fulks attempted to ram Jordan's car with Severance's van, but stopped short. Guess he didn't want to get hurt.
Yeah.
Basham exited the house and fired a shot at a nearby greenhouse. I don't know what the greenhouse did to him, but he shot at it. Fulks then fired a shot and shattered the back window of Jordan's car. Jordan fled the area, with Fulks and Basham in pursuit, still firing. At some point, Fulks and Basham ceased their chase, abandoned Severance's van, and stole a truck, which they drove to the Walmart in Conway.
Another Walmart.
Another Walmart. They love the Walmart. Upon arriving at the Walmart, Basham approached a blue BMW sedan driven by 44-year-old Alice Donovan. Basham entered the car and forced Donovan to drive to the back of the parking lot where Fulks waited. There,
Squeaky.
yeah, there, Fulks entered the driver's side of the car and drove away. At 4:03 p.m., Fulks used Donovan's ATM card to purchase gas from a service station in Charlotte, North Carolina. At 4:30 p.m., Donovan called her daughter to say she was shopping and would be home late. Later that day, several men at the Bee Tree Farms Hunt Club in Winnebago, North Carolina, saw two men and a woman in a blue BMW drive to the end of the road by the lodge, turn around, and leave the area.
There's an episode on, I think it's called 3 Days to Live, of the Alice Donovan abduction and murder. And she did call her daughter and say she'd be out shopping late, and her daughters all said that that was not uncommon for her to be out all day shopping, and it's around Christmas time, you're Christmas shopping. So her husband went to sleep, and she still wasn't home. But then he woke up in the middle of the night and started looking for her. And I think it was the ATMs where they were using her card is how he got the banks to show him the surveillance video from the ATMs, but they wouldn't show him without a cop. Cop was there, showed him the surveillance video at the ATM of a man getting money out. And they still wouldn't start a missing persons case because they said that she could be doing that on her own free will.
She could be having an affair.
Right. And even though she wasn't where she said she was going to be, and there was this money being withdrawn from their account, they still made him wait the 24 hours. When you only have like 72 hours after someone's missing for your odds to be in your favor of them being alive. But eventually they did start looking for her.
Yeah.
You can watch the episode.
Yeah. Donovan, like Samantha Burns, was never seen again after this.
Yeah.
Basham and Fulks returned to their Myrtle Beach motel later that day and told Severance and Roddy they had to leave town because Basham shot at some police officers and Severance's van had been seized. Basham and Fulks took Donovan's BMW and began driving to West Virginia, leaving Severance and Roddy behind in Myrtle Beach. Why did she not question where the BMW came from? That's a good question.
But, I mean, it's a good question if you want the answer.
I'm just... Why would you... oh, there's a new vehicle? Cool.
Well, yes.
I'm just saying. Donovan's ATM card was used in Little River, Myrtle Beach, and Raleigh, North Carolina. Meanwhile, Severance filed a false police report alleging that her van had been stolen. Gotta cover her own butt.
Well, they told her it was seized. So she didn't believe their story anyways.
Yeah. On November the 15th, 2002, Fulks and Basham arrived at the home of Beth McGuffin near Huntington, West Virginia. McGuffin, a childhood friend of Fulks, agreed to let Fulks and Basham stay at her home. Fulks introduced Basham to her as Tommy Blake. Later, on November 15th, Fulks and Basham purchased crack cocaine to share. So we're in the 1980s, apparently. Basham and McGuffin also began a sexual relationship and had sexual intercourse 3 times over the next several days.
3 times.
3 times. Basham also gave McGuffin Burns's heart-shaped ring.
No.
That's just creepy.
It is
on
very
so many
creepy.
levels. On November 16th, the 3 watched a news story about the disappearance of Samantha Burns. When McGuffin remarked that Burns was likely dead, Fulks stated, "She is dead."
Well, how would you know?
Right? And that story was everywhere for
Yeah.
months.
It still pops up.
Yeah, but it was every broadcast.
It was very scary.
Yeah, yes, it was. At the same time, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI, was investigating the kidnapping of James Hawkins, which it was believed that Basham and Fulks had committed after escaping from prison. The FBI learned that the 2 men might be in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and that Severance had reported her van stolen, because that was a previous connection.
Right.
On November 16th, the FBI and local authorities interviewed Severance and learned that Basham and Fulks had left the area. The FBI also became aware of the disappearance of Alice Donovan and suspected that Fulks and Basham just might be involved.
It's all coming together.
On Sunday, November the 17th, Fulks, Basham, and McGuffin smoked marijuana before Fulks and Basham left McGuffin's house, telling her they were headed to Arizona. Okay. Instead, they stopped at the Ashland Town Center in Ashland, Kentucky, about 20 minutes from Huntington. Sometime that evening, in a Walmart parking lot,
The Walmart.
good old Walmart, Basham approached Deanna Francis's 15-year-old daughter as she entered passenger side of their vehicle. Basham pointed a gun into the teenager's side, attempting to enter the car and ask for directions to Greenville, Kentucky. When Basham realized that Deanna's daughter was talking on her cell phone, he said, "My bad, I didn't mean to scare you," and walked away. Deanna, not being a complete idiot, immediately called the police.
I would hope so.
Yeah, Ashland police officer Matt Davis was approximately 4 blocks away from the town center when he heard the dispatch about an attempted carjacking. Davis drove to the mall, which is what the Ashland Town Center is. It's a mall.
Right.
Where he saw Basham, who met the description of the suspected carjacker. Davis exited his patrol vehicle and approached Basham. Basham immediately began to flee. Cops.
Well, yes. You just pointed a gun at a girl.
Yeah. As Davis chased Basham through the mall area, Basham drew his weapon and fired a shot into the air. As the chase continued, Basham drew his weapon a second time, turned, and fired at Davis, who fired 3 shots of his own in return.
Now he is shooting at a cop.
Yes, he is. Basham eventually made his way to the rail yard on the banks of the Ohio River, where he hid. Davis radioed for reinforcements, which surrounded the area. Now, more than an hour later, at approximately 9 o'clock at night, Basham surrendered to police, identifying himself as Josh Rittman. Police recovered a knife, later identified as belonging to Alice Donovan, and a cracked cocaine pipe on Basham's person.
I don't know if it's true or not, but I heard that he only surrendered because he was really cold.
No, not in November. Basham's pistol was recovered from a rail car several days later.
Well, he wouldn't be caught with it.
No, I'm kind of surprised the rail car was still there.
Yeah.
Fulks returned to McGuffin's home that evening and watched the news report on Basham's arrest. The morning of November 18th, Fulks left McGuffin's residence to drive Donovan's BMW to his brother's house in Goshen, Indiana. Fulks stopped at a rest area where an Ohio state trooper.
Well, again, he's going to another known contact.
Yeah,
for police to find him.
Well, this kind of sounds like a lucky break for the cops, because he stopped at a rest area where the state trooper who ascertained that the BMW was stolen approached him. Now, a high speed chase ensued at this point, with speeds exceeding 130 miles an hour.
Pretty fast.
Yeah. Now, you hit. This is country area. If you go that fast,
I believe Fulks grew up in Hamlin or West Hamlin.
then he knows better. There's too many deer around here. That's a good way to kill yourself.
True.
During this chase, Folks nearly struck another trooper before managing to evade capture. Folks eventually arrived at his brother's home in the early morning hours of November 20th. Police officers were staking out Ronnie's home, however, and when Folks, his brother Ronnie, and Ronnie's girlfriend drove into a barn to hide the BMW, Folks was arrested.
Going down.
Right. Now, in the back seat of the BMW, they discovered traces of Folks's semen and the bodily fluids of an unidentified female.
Oh no.
Yeah. Back in West Virginia, investigators determined that Josh Rittman was actually Basham and that he was a recent prisoner escapee. Now, at 2 a.m. on November the 19th, Basham was interviewed for the first time. Basham first told investigators that he and Folks had escaped from prison and committed several crimes along the way. Later, he admitted that they had traveled to South Carolina and kidnapped a woman in Conway, South Carolina. Basham, however, insisted that the woman was alive and with Folks. Because he doesn't know if Folks got busted yet.
Right.
At 9:45 a.m. on November the 19th, investigators re-interviewed Basham. Basham then told investigators that he and Folks kidnapped a man after escaping from prison and carried firearms when kidnapping Donovan. He further told investigators that they had used her credit cards to obtain cash and that they had driven Donovan to Ashland, Kentucky.
Just singing like a bird.
Yeah. Why would you admit that? They had driven her to Ashland, Kentucky, and then Folks was waiting for Basham when Basham was caught. This time, Basham said that he thought Donovan was dead because she was not with Basham and Folks at the Ashland Town Center. Now, during this interview, Basham also told investigators that Folks got a girl in West Virginia as well. On November 20th, FBI agents interviewed Basham for 7 hours. On this occasion, Basham told investigators that after they kidnapped Donovan, Folks dropped Basham off at a hotel, drove Donovan to a resort area, raped her, tied her up, and left her. Basham also claimed that Folks was the one who actually carjacked Donovan. Basham also clarified that when he said Folks got a girl in West Virginia, that he only meant that they had stolen girls' credit cards, not that they had kidnapped anyone else.
No.
Yeah, because he's trying to backpedal.
Yeah, and it seems like he's trying to make it look like maybe it wasn't his idea.
Oh,
so
yeah,
he shouldn't be in trouble.
Yeah, he was just along for the ride. At this point, investigators believe Donovan may have still been alive.
They're hoping.
Yeah, until they can prove otherwise. Basham drew a map to the places that Folks and Basham had been with Donovan. This map roughly corresponded with the Savannah Bluff area of Horry County, South Carolina. A 2-day search of the area, however, left investigators no closer to discovering Donovan's fate. On November the 25th, Basham, now represented by counsel, agreed to help investigators finding Donovan's body.
That was very kind of him.
Right? He drew a map, mentioned passing through a cemetery, and told them Donovan's body was left covered but unburied in the woods. On November 26th, Basham told investigators that Samantha Burns was dead. He said that he and Fulks rolled her body down an embankment into the Guyandotte River near Huntington. 2 days later, on November 28th, FBI and state investigators organized a search team to search Brunswick County, North Carolina, for Donovan's body. Now, Basham, now represented with new counsel, accompanied them. Because, he can't have the same lawyer because that didn't get him, the first one didn't get him off.
Right. And let him speak freely.
Yeah, how dare they? During the ride, Basham saw a deer and said, "I never could kill a deer, and here I have," but was cut off before finishing his sentence.
I'm assuming back counsel.
Yeah, one would hope. Later that day, Basham told the investigators that he and Fulks had driven past a park, taken Donovan's body out of her car, dragged it into the woods, and covered it. On 2 occasions, Basham became emotional as he identified landmarks where he and Fulks had taken Donovan. I wonder if they mean, like, actually emotional, or he was getting giddy remembering it. Because he don't seem like somebody who's that sad about things.
There are so many emotions to be had.
Yeah. Later, Basham told investigators he had thrown out a Liz Claiborne purse strap at the Bee Tree Farm Cemetery. When they arrived, the local sheriff asked, "Is this where it happened?" Basham responded, "This is it." It is. The cemetery was searched to no avail.
And I would say when they said he was getting emotional at the landmarks, now that I think about it, he was saying I couldn't even kill a deer. And yet, I mean, we all know he was about to say, and yet here I have killed women.
After doing things to them.
Yeah. So maybe he was having a moment of remorse, or I don't know, sorry he got caught. Kind of
That? Maybe that one. Starting in late November of 2002, while in jail awaiting trial, Basham began writing letters to McGuffin, telling her his real name, claiming that he loved her, and that he had not hurt that girl from South Carolina, and that Fulks was responsible for their crime spree. Because, it's not his fault.
No one thought so.
No. On this last point, Basham wrote that Fulks lied to me and told me he had all kinds of money and a new car and all this stuff just waiting on him. And all he needed me to do was to show him the way from the jail because I was raised in that area.
It's always hot for a guy to tell you that he was that persuasive or persuaded.
Yeah.
To do bad things.
Yeah, it only took that. That's all it took. Basham was not entirely forthright with McGuffin, however, as he also wrote that Burns's ring, which he had given to McGuffin, was not stolen or anything like that. Basham also confided that he did a lot of bad with Fulks. On December 24th, Christmas Eve, 2002, Basham called a former middle school teacher in Madisonville, Kentucky, Clifford J. When Jay asked whether Basham had killed Alice Donovan, Basham replied, "Yes, sir, we killed them." Jay was surprised by the use of the term "them" because he had only heard about the Donovan killing. He didn't know that they were connected with Burns.
Yeah, implicating yourself.
Oh, yes. Following our opinion, it was confirmed that Donovan's remains had been found in a wooded area in Horry County, South Carolina.
7 years later.
Yeah. On November the 17th of 2002, Basham and Fulks were charged in the District of South Carolina for their crimes against Donovan. The operative 8-count superseding indictment. I know, I can't talk. Was then returned on April 23rd of 2003. The first 2 counts, carjacking resulting in death and kidnapping resulting in death, carried the possibility of a death sentence. On September 13th, 2003, the government filed a notice of intent to seek the death penalty against Basham under the Federal Death Penalty Act. Basham and Fulks' cases were severed for trial on January 29, 2004. Basham's trial commenced on September 13, 2004. The evidence during the guilt phase of the trial proceedings included testimony from 89 witnesses, post-arrest statements made by Basham to the FBI, Clifford J., and McGuffin, surveillance videos of Donovan's abduction in the Walmart parking lot, as well as ATM withdrawals made by Fulks using Donovan's ATM card. Fulks pleaded guilty and was sentenced to death. During the trial, the defense conceded Basham's culpability in the carjacking and kidnapping. The defense argued, however, that Fulks had committed Donovan's murder and was the instigator throughout the crime spree. It's not his fault.
No, he held strong onto that.
Yeah. To that end, during Basham's opening statement, defense counsel asserted that the only issue of controversy was Basham's intent to commit serious bodily harm to Donovan at the time of the induction.
That does not silence your cough at all. Turning your head, but it's still loud.
Basham's intent to commit serious bodily harm to Donovan at the time of the abduction. After the 13-day guilt phase of the trial, the jury convicted Basham of all 8 counts in the superseding indictment. How do you say that word? My brain is indictment. Haven't been watching Law and Order lately. The penalty phase of the trial proceedings commenced on October 12, 2004. The prosecution introduced the trial record as its principal evidence. In addition, the prosecution presented testimony from correctional officers and a female nurse regarding Basham's misconduct, drug use, and sexual misconduct towards female employees in prison. Now, women working in a prison system, they got some pretty tough skin.
Yeah, but none of this was Basham's fault to begin with.
Well, of course not. Yeah. I'm just saying, if they're having an issue with his behavior, that's telling.
Yeah.
Because they're used to having to deal with a lot.
Right. Thick skin and all that.
Yeah. Testimony from Donovan's family regarding the impact of her death and videotape showing the courtroom scuffle between Basham and Deputy U.S. Marshals that had occurred during the guilt phase of the trial. In mitigation, Basham put forth evidence that his parents encouraged his bad behavior, forced him to steal to support their drug habits, and introduced him to drugs, and that Basham was sexually abused by one of his father's friends. It's all my mommy and daddy's fault. It's not my fault.
Yeah, there are a lot of people that have terrible childhoods all the way through their adolescence into adulthood that are not murdering people or going to the Walmart to rob cars, hold people at gunpoint.
Yeah, abuse does not excuse bad behavior.
No.
Criminal behavior.
I know statistically there's a better chance that you will become involved in criminal activity and abuse people, all the things. But there are still so many people who go on to not wreak havoc on society.
Yeah. It's your choice.
Right.
Basham also introduced mitigating evidence regarding his mental condition and ability to adapt to prison life.
Who adapts to prison life?
You got some problems if you do. On November 2nd, 2004, the jury returned a verdict recommending that Basham be sentenced to death on counts 1 and 2. Basham's convictions and death sentences were entered on February the 16th of 2005. An aggregate sentence of 744 months in prison was imposed on the remaining 6 counts. That's over 60 years.
Yep. And as of right now, I guess they had been on death row for 20 years.
Almost. because this was February of 2005.
Yeah.
On appeal, we affirmed Basham's convictions and sentence in all respects. Guess that's what was decided.
Okay.
Fulks and Basham have both filed motions to appeal several times throughout the years, and they have both been denied. Denied. Their sentences have remained the same, and they have been on death row until December 23rd, the day before Christmas Eve, 2024, and just a few days ago, when President Joe Biden commuted the sentences for 37 of 40 individuals on death row, federal death row.
I guess 3 of them, he decided they deserve it.
I think they might have been related to cop killers and hate crimes or terrorists, something. I don't know.
Okay.
I just remember that they had a reason.
Sure.
Good reason, bad reason, whatever. Reason.
They always have a reason.
Well, yeah. Chadrick Fulks and Brandon Basham were 2 of the 37 whose sentences had been reduced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. In December of 26th of 2024, former governor of West Virginia, Senator Joe Manchin, went to social media to speak up for Samantha Burns and her family. Manchin posted on X, formerly Twitter.
Yeah. He tweeted.
Yeah, he tweeted, after speaking to Samantha Burns' parents, I believe it is my duty to speak on their behalf and say President Biden's decision to commute the death sentences for the 2 men convicted in her brutal murder is horribly misguided and insulting. Particularly since Samantha's family wrote letters to President Biden and the Department of Justice pleading for them not to do this, but their concerns were unheard. I can't imagine the grief that Candy and John Burns are reliving and dealing with during the holiday season. As their U.S. Senator and a father, I want to express my deepest sympathy for their continued suffering. Please know that Samantha will forever be in our prayers.
I thought that was, I don't have another word other than good. Or good of him.
Well done.
Yes.
Good for him.
Good for
him.
Good on him.
Well, we'll go straight hook. Good for him. Good for him.
But, yeah, the family, they don't have Samantha's body. They have no closure other than this death sentence. And I'm not getting political about it. I don't want to say my opinion one way or the other because I don't know. I'm glad I'm not in charge of making that decision.
Yeah.
But he says he spoke to the family, and like our family is friends with their family. And we didn't know Samantha personally, but
yeah, she was only a couple months older than me.
Yeah, and my husband Matt, he was friends with Samantha. He saved all the newspaper clippings and everything. And it's not like that Fulks and Basham were on death row without like enough evidence. It was without a shadow of a doubt that they did these things.
This wasn't somebody that got convicted but wrongfully.
Right. There's no chance that there's something going to come up and say, oh, these guys did not escape prison and rob everyone that they came in contact with and kill women for their vehicles and whatever reason, we don't know. And then beyond that, since then, they have written to the family, told them different locations of where they could find Samantha, which all turn up wrong. And it's like almost like they're playing some sort of game. So there's nothing to gain.
It's sadistic.
From them being here. There's no chance that they're going to be like, oh, finally, I will tell you where your daughter's body is. That's not going to happen. I don't think they know.
Yeah, I think they were too high.
Too something.
Too on something. Although the fact that they keep saying about marijuana, it wasn't the marijuana. Like the abuse, it wasn't the abuse and it wasn't the marijuana.
No.
That made them do that.
No. These were choices that you made because this is the person that you are.
Marijuana should have stopped them.
Right.
Sat them down on the couch and had them order Taco Bell.
Right. If they would have just only smoked marijuana. Well, I don't know. Because even if you're that person high.
Yeah. True.
So,
but yeah, that's when that happened. Like, we could have been at the mall.
we might have been.
Yeah, we might have been at the mall that day.
Yeah, it was nothing to close it out.
Yeah, you were actually surprised you weren't working.
Well,
you were 16.
I was working at Wendy's.
Up at the mall.
Yeah.
And they were still open.
Yeah, we were open till 2
Yeah.
2 a.m. or later.
Yeah. Because this is all pre-COVID.
Yep.
When the world made sense.
Did it though?
No. Not really. But I could go in at 2 a.m. to Walmart and get me a bag of hot dogs and come home and make them and eat them.
You sure could. If that's what you wanted to do, you could do it. Okay, well, that's all I really have to say about this.
Yeah,
So thanks to listening to our first episode.
Thanks.
If you did, we thank you.
And if you didn't, you don't know what we're saying anyway, so bye.
All right, bye everybody.
Bye.